Hello, everyone. I am Lady Genevieve. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. And today I am joined by the man, the legend, the pillar of stunts and action across Zack Snyder's entire filmography, including his short film that is not talked about enough. Damon Caro, thank you so much for agreeing to virtually speak with me.
My pleasure. I'm glad we finally brought it to fruition. I know we had tried for a while, and things kept our schedules weren't meshing, but it's great to be here finally.
Yeah, well, we linked up back during SnyderCon 2.0, but I knew that I wanted to get you on if you were willing. And not only did our schedules finally align, I don't know if you were allowed to do interviews because of the strikes, because you're in SAG,
No, I
right?
wasn't actually. Yes.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because it was a bit blurry as far as what press we could do or interviews, etc. And then my good friend Rich Citrone reached out to me and he said, "Hey, I'm supposed to do this podcast." And I went, well, you know what? You better wait till the strike is done. And I know when we were trying to hook up, I didn't even. It's just you just forget about it because we all became so numb during the strike, and then you went, "Oh, wait a minute!" So it all worked out. The timing is perfect. So
Yeah, because for anybody who doesn't know this, stunt performers are under the very large umbrella of SAG-AFTRA. I think people just assume it's only actors in the traditional sense, but I think I was talking to some members of SAG before the strike was actually greenlit, and they were saying that it's so much bigger than people realize. It's things like radio hosts and television hosts, just things that you wouldn't even realize are part of SAG are in fact part of SAG. So
that,
yeah.
that's right. SAG, Screen Actors Guild, and AFTRA were separate, and they merged. So that's where the television and radio. So everybody's under the umbrella, and it's dancers, voiceover, puppeteers, some puppeteers to a certain level, stunt performers, actors, extras, and forgive me whoever I'm missing. So,
but as far as the broad category of stunts goes, there's often conversations had among film fans and film enthusiasts for there to be greater recognition for stunts, and they want things to happen like for there to be an Academy Awards category for stunts. But when we think about these strikes that just happened for WGA and SAG, I don't know if people are as familiar with the way the industry's shifting has impacted the field of stunt. So I was looking online to try to learn more about it before talking to you, and I found an article in the Hollywood Reporter, and there was a quote I wanted to pull that says, "Stunt coordinators for theater releases are guaranteed residuals the same as the performers, yet when you move over to TV streaming, we get none." And that was from Court L. Hessler III, who is the national chair of the SAG-AFTRA Stunt and Safety Committee. So it is something that is impacting stunt performers, not just the people that we see on camera with their own faces. Was there anything that you would like to add or maybe raise awareness to in regards to this ongoing battle as it applies to stunts? Because I know that fans of filmmaking and of these works of art, they like to advocate for workers, but if they don't really know what the issues are, then they don't know what to get online and rally behind, so to speak. So was there anything that you wanted to share about that?
I mean, look, it's as far as I'm DGA and SAG, so the DGA settled with the DGA, and SAG and the WGA were on strike. So I had one foot in someone that could work, but everything is basically shut down. And then obviously I'm a Screen Actors Guild member as well. So, when it's a bit like politics, when both sides come out kind of going, yeah, the deal's okay, it's probably fair, right? Because if one side's a little too happy about it, then it's usually it's not the right deal. And I haven't read in detail the Screen Actors Guild. Full transparency, I mainly have been DGA for the last decade and a half almost. I do some coordinating still here and there, like for Zach, I'll help him, and clearly, but it's a tricky process because of the streaming was a wrinkle, and that is they always call it new media, and whether it was first it would be digitally, you could get it, from iTunes and things like that. And there was just Netflix. And then all of a sudden all these streamers came online. And that was a big shift as far as where the content was being made and how much you were being paid, because the contracts were different initially. Residual structure was non-existent in many in the beginning, even though revenue was going well. So it's always that stage where, oh, okay, we have to figure this new medium out. But I always go, well, don't you just take the old medium and use the same percentage? And, it can get more complicated. I think it gets more complicated than it needs to be, clouding the issue a little bit. But I'm glad that it's over, because a lot of people were hurt, not only in people directly involved with the industry, whether it be props, whether it be wardrobe, electric, you name it, construction, as well as performers and etc. And the studios, after their first quarter earnings came in after the strike, went, "Ooh, this is really hurting us too." So everybody got stung, right? So I'm just glad for those who have really suffered through it, whether they lost their apartment or homes, and all these various things, that the well's going to get primed again, and we'll get back to making movies, and people are, hopefully we haven't lost the audiences that we just gained back from COVID.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know that for me personally, I tend to have the most radical positions possible. So for anyone watching, if I express any extreme opinions, those are my opinions, and you don't need to assume that they're Damon's. But I just think it's completely abominable that you've got these CEOs and executives that are making 7, 8, 9-figure salaries, while what is something like 80% of SAG members don't even make enough to qualify for health insurance, when I'm if you're alive, you should have access to health insurance type of person. So, I think that I get where you're coming from, where you're saying, oh, well, if both sides are kind of unhappy, then it's probably fair. But I'm the person where I'm like, if everybody has housing and healthcare, then it's fair.
Right. However, I would say, and I understand this just through age, I'm no spring chicken anymore, is that still has to be paid for. And that money, which I get, a large majority of people in the Screen Actors Guild, and I don't know the exact number, but there's a good chunk that are the extras. They get their card and they work once a year, a couple times a year, don't work for years. So we do have a massive amount of members versus the amount that work. It's by the way, actors, unfortunately, that's just the reality. There's only so much work, and you've got your A-list, B-list actors that you see everywhere, and then the working class actors that are. I mean, I remember doing a TV show in the late '90s, and I worked with. I forget his name, but he was a Seinfeld classic. He played the soup Nazi on Seinfeld. And I forget the gentleman's name, but just, great character actor. And you'd seen him in everything. And he was playing this guest starring role. And it's just a sweet man and really great. And I was shocked to find out that he literally, no, I do this. I can't make a living doing this. My wife and I have a bails bond company. That's our real business. But this guy, again, it's not as though he worked all the time, but he had some iconic roles, and you just automatically think, oh, wow, he's got to be rich. Well, no, not necessarily, because there's your base pay. And then if your projects or your films can generate more money, you're going to get a bigger piece of the pie. So it's layered, it is layered for sure.
I think Angela Lansbury, back in the day when she had Murder, She Wrote, she would cast older actors to come on so that they could make sure that they were qualifying for their insurance. And I was like, okay, she's a real one for that. That's what I want to hear, people looking out for each other instead of just caring about their own egos and their own star status.
That's an excellent story, and I love to hear that. I have done similar things in the stunt business, but at the same time, it's tricky being a stunt performer, because you can't. It really should be. We've tried to get the age reduced as a stunt performer, but you technically can't fully retire till you're 65, which is the same as anyone else in the Screen Actors Guild, which doesn't really make sense when you've been hit by cars and thrown off buildings for a living.
Fall downstairs, set
60,
on fire.
55, yeah, you know. So it is tricky for, and they have changed. They have changed the rules on some of the older retirees in SAG, where they used to get full insurance for life, and then now that changed, and there was, you know, that was a big blow up a couple of years ago, and there were a lot of actors it was nice to see that sort of stand up for that. So there's some people, guys that I really admired, and they were mentors of mine when I was coming up in the biz. And I would hire them specifically for driving because, you know, you don't want to hit these guys with a car. These guys can't do
Right.
stunts anymore, but
Yeah.
still skilled drivers, amazing. And it's funny how people can just kind of forget about them, even in the business. I would be shocked. I'm like, well, what? He hasn't made his pension this, or, you know, he hasn't made it. Sorry, his medical this year. You know, I need this spot. So there were 2 or 3 guys that I would always try and do that for if I had a show. And again, it wasn't a gimme. It wasn't, hey, I'm going to throw free money your way. It was like, you have a skill. It's just interesting because I didn't want anything from them. A lot of times in everything in life, every business in life, it's, oh, I'll do this, and then I'm hoping that you're going to reciprocate, blah, blah, blah. I was just, it was an honor to hire those guys, these legends in the business. And oh, by the way, they made their medical for the year. So that really, you know, and they were so grateful, right? So that's interesting. That's good to hear.
In trying to research you before you were going to come on here, I already knew that I respected your work because the level of quality is very high, but I find that I respect what you've achieved a lot more now because I heard you say things about having to really grind in the beginning,
Mm,
just taking whatever jobs you could that was non-union work just to try to get the SAG card in the first place because
mm, mhm.
sometimes I'm amazed that my eyeballs can stay inside of my head because of how much I'm rolling my eyes every time there's a newcomer in the industry announced. And then I look them up online and I'm going, why do all your relatives have Wikipedia pages? And of course, it's the age old nepotism.
Mm.
And, you know, I'm just like, okay, I'm not saying that you don't have skills, but it gets so repetitive very quickly. But I would be interested to know your perspective in looking back on your ability to push through that really difficult period of just getting in the door.
Mhm.
Where did you find the motivation to keep going? Because it feels like such an uphill battle sometimes. And I don't know if there's any sage advice you can offer others who don't have nepotism and generational wealth working in their favor.
Yeah, it's not new advice. It's tried and true. The reality is I was not going to give up. And it was that simple. It literally was, a lot of people we came up in the business with or tried to get in the business, 90% of them didn't stick it out. Um, and there's a handful of the guys I came up with who did. And you just don't give up. That's the key. It's really, and that's a mindset. That's a daily mindset of the demons come in. Oh, I gotta feel sorry for myself. I've gotta, why? Oh, woe is me. Doesn't mean no good. I gotta wake up and think, and I still do this to this day, more so even that obviously with, I look back and pinch myself as a guy who, you know, was making movies at, you know, 9 Super 8 movies and stop motion movies, and that I have been able to be involved in so many amazing projects that I'm a fan of, which was, it's just, I have to pinch myself. But I'm so grateful. And that was the key. It's like, okay, what do I have to be grateful for today? How can I build on that? Because it just improves the attitude and the energy of myself. And I'm more enjoyable to be around. And the universe just kind of changes, right? And it really, I wish I'd have even understood that more when I was younger, because I really see how it helps mold the fibers of your whatever you're doing. And that's a big part of it. It was perseverance. You know, I don't have a backup plan. So that was a big motivator. And you know, I just need to, I'm gonna not gonna give up. And what do I look at all these things I have to be grateful for right now? And, you can go down the list.
One of the things I never knew about you, because obviously I was familiar with all this work you're doing to do with stunts, and you make the odd appearance here and there where we can actually see your face, and it's not just turning away, doubling for someone else. But I didn't know that you actually studied acting a bit in your teens.
Yeah.
So how has that training informed your understanding of the concept of character
Mhm.
in such a way that you can apply that to developing choreographic language for specific characters on jobs?
It plays a lot into that, as well as the love of story, uh, because those are the two motivating factors for me in whatever capacity. Whether I'm many times with second unit directing, there's dialogue and there's a lot of performance, whether it be without dialogue or with. So having that insight of being in their shoes, even though I didn't do much, I didn't work much as an actor. I trained a decent amount. You just learn the language, and you just see it. Oh, those are the struggles they're dealing with. And as far as choreography, yeah, it's mine. I don't like mindless, whether it's action, fight choreography, action in general. I don't like mindless action. It's boring to me. So it all has to be motivated, for me, it has to be motivated by story and character. And then it almost, because of the vast experience that I have in martial arts and other areas of stunts, as there are many who do, it just sort of unfolds. It's not about, oh, I'm trying to structure this thing. It just comes out when you're always emanating from story and character.
I've taken acting classes, and I think there's a lot of overlap, even if you don't have, like, I'm not trained in martial arts or anything like that. But of course, physicality is a key component of bringing a character to life. I think I also just have a habit of choosing very dramatic scenes. Like if I have a choice in what I'm doing, it's
Mhm.
usually, so there's going to be, at some point in what I have to say, there's going to be some type of dramatic physicality. There was even one scene that I didn't even choose it, but it was assigned to me. And the teacher, I think last minute, she was like, I think at the end, you should flail your arm and like knock all the stuff off the table, which did make sense for it. We were having a fight in the scene, and
Mhm.
I was like, okay, yeah, I'll do it. I think I broke a prop, not
Good.
on purpose, but
Well, good. That's good. You were in the moment. Lovely. Sounds good.
yeah, I was like really feeling we were having a fight. I was fighting with my sister, which was definitely me acting because I'm an only child. So
Oh, wow.
I have no siblings to fight in real life. But yeah, no, I think it's also just I tend to be drawn to, I really like women characters who are going through something really intense. So it's always like a breakup scene, or I'm playing a woman who is involved in murder somehow. And I don't know what that says about me because I've never murdered anyone. But for some reason,
Hmm.
come time to perform a character, it's like, oh, she kills people. Love that. I want to do
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a
Mhm.
fun time.
Good.
So you mentioned your second unit directing, and I'm curious about when you take on that responsibility. Do you typically have any room to be creative, so to speak, or is there more of a pressure to, I guess, match what you're doing to, if it's on a feature film, to match it stylistically to whomever the main director is, or if it's on a television show? Obviously, that's a little different because television tends to, the creativity doesn't really extend to the directors on television as much as it does on a feature film. But yeah, I don't know, anything you want to explain about that process for you.
Yeah, you're there to support the main director. Job one. Yes, you are there to guide, to create for them, but you have to mesh with what ultimately their vision is. And that's why I have not a long list of people that I've second unit directed for. I've usually repeat business because I don't want to do it just to do it. Um, I will say the last second unit job I did was the final season of Jason Momoa's C. And that was actually, I mean, Apple really had a great environment for creativity. And they were really supportive. And as was, it was just myself and one other director, because it was during COVID. So we had one crew, and I ended up shooting, dialogue with, it was just beautiful. And there was just this symmetry and this beautiful, you couldn't tell when the handoff was happening.
Mhm.
Sometimes he'd direct for a couple days, and then I'd shoot for a couple days, and we would always be around to support and just to make sure everything was meshing together. But it was a great experience in the sense of Apple was really supportive, and we got to be very creative there. So that was, I don't know if, say, network television still allows that, but it was nice to see, because the last time I had done TV had been in the 90s, I think, just when I was coming up. So I had never done television in a capacity as a second unit director. So I was a little concerned going in, but I was pleasantly surprised.
Is there anything in particular that you would cite as a particular visual stamp that is, I don't know if you have a signature or something that you're drawn to visually? If we're watching something that you've done second unit directing on, are there any Damon Caro isms we should be on the lookout for, of like, oh yeah, that's Damon right there?
I don't, not that I'm aware of. I
Mm.
know, everyone has a style and an expression and a stamp just from their personal expression. But again, I don't set out to go, oh, I want this, knowing that I have these whatever calling cards or stamps you want to, because stylistically it has to look different depending on the project and the story. Again, always depending on the story. What is the story trying to convey and the characters? So I love high speed, like Snyder. I mean, we were lovers of Slo-Mo. So we certainly will implement that. I've used it in so many stunt visits that I've shot for him over the years, and he's a master at it. And we sometimes have joked, because I'll keep it vague, but I've worked on some other shows where I've shot some vises, and I thought that they were just perfectly, the high speed was perfect. And then when it was shot and then recut, I've had editors even come to me and went, I really liked your version better, because and so I made that joke with Snyder. I'm like, you should have to have a license to use high speed in a movie if you want to do that, or TV. If you want to shoot high speed, you need to. Obviously, I'm joking, but just because what did Ian Malcolm say in Jurassic Park? Just because you could doesn't mean you should.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, I'm a high speed snob and that's my personal expression. That's the beauty of it, is whoever's directing, that's their personal expression of it. So if it feels right to them, God bless them. That's it.
So when you say that you like shooting in high speed, is that when you film something and then you slow it down in the edit?
Yes. So, well, great question. Back in the day, we called it high speed because you had to overcrank the speed of the camera,
Mm-hmm.
because normal speed was 24 frames per second. So if you wanted to protract that, you needed to capture more frames in that same second.
Mm-hmm.
So hence why you called it high speed. So that we'd go to 48, go to 72, 96, et cetera, whatever, 120. You could go to various, all the way to phantom cameras that were 1,000 frames per second. Now it's all done digitally, so high speed still kind of makes sense, but that was the origin. Or if you said that's overcrank, undercrank was if you wanted to go 23 frames or 22, like a lot of the Hong Kong films would do that, because it made you went a little faster, right? But it sometimes got goofy when you were supposed to be moving regular speed, and then so that's the term, what a term means now. Now I just say slow-mo. It's another way you could call it, done
Mm-hmm.
digitally. But yeah, so if you can just do it in post with digital cameras now. You can, but it's not as smooth, and you're not capturing as much content in that short period. So it's best to know up front, if I want to go to this frame rate, and maybe I knock it down a little bit or slow it a little bit, but you can time remap in post now. So, I mean, it's amazing the technology and the tools at your disposal now in post is amazing.
Yeah. Well, that's why, I mean, me having a lighting setup in my room is because I'm used to filming myself talking to a camera on a regular basis for YouTube. So I mean that would be unheard of. However, you go back 20, 30 years, that wasn't just a thing of like everybody has a camera at home and is filming and regularly building their own little platforms online. So it's kind of fun because it's sort of democratized the process a little bit.
Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I love the fact that, there's usually pros and cons with everything, right? But the ability for people to have programs like this and various others to talk and discuss ideas, it's fantastic. And the ability, you can shoot films on your phone now. I mean, we didn't have phones. When I was shooting Super 8 movies, it was this crazy little splicing to edit, and hold it up to a light, and I think that's where I want to cut, and it's just to get it developed. You couldn't play back right away. You'd shoot this footage, and then a week later, after you have it developed and get it back and watch it, went, oh, that's horrible. So yeah, the technology is incredible. I mean, it's an amazing time in so many areas. Yeah.
You've mentioned the Super 8 films that you would shoot as a kid. So you, in other situations, have listed some of the stuff you've made with them. You had zombie movies, sword fighting movies, sci-fi movies. I have my whole little document of my notes that I was taking to prepare. And I love that there's such a variation in genres. So when I say Damon Caro dream project, let's just say you get to cut through all the red tape, all the nonsense, that just endless pages and pages of development hell, and you get to fast track to just make the movie that you want to make. What's the genre? I mean, because even if you say action, that's so broad. That could be in so
that's
many
hard.
ways.
Even, it's funny, literally for 7, almost 8 years now, have considered directing and have had projects come to me that I'm not interested, because I don't want to do it to tick a box. I'd rather just have never done it. I want the project to be, I can't be passionate about it unless it's something I believe in or I'm excited about. And there's been several that have come looking like they're ready to go, but I haven't been interested. And then there's been a couple I've developed on my own, and a couple others that came my way, but they all hit walls. But they've been very diverse. One's been a zombie project. One was a 303. One is a script that I've developed, that it's a Middle East drama with action in it, but it's military based. That's a very powerful story. It's about a women fighting force, by the way. But just can't seem to get the ones I really care about to take hold and to get scooped up. So my interests are diverse as far as that goes. There's some that could be, like I said, very drama driven, with the action as a supporting role. At the same time, I'm a big fan of so many sci-fi and horror films of the 60s, 70s, 80s. I think a remake of The Omega Man, which was I Am Legend, the same story, that's something that would be amazing to do. I'm a big fan of the Ray Harryhausen's Sinbad movies. I can't believe those haven't recirculated again yet, because they tend to run out of ideas and go, what were the ones we liked, so yeah, there's no one thing that I'm like, oh, this would be it. I've got have diverse interests, just like when I watch films. I like a diverse options of viewing.
I feel like remaking things can be so hit or miss, because sometimes you can take strong inspiration from something and put enough of your own twist on it that it still is worth watching on its own. And other times it's just a car crash and you're like, why did you do this? Like, I'm on my wall behind me, I have the Stepford Wives from 1975, and they remade that as a comedy. Right. Oh, like, that's just a knife to my heart. Like, the audacity, it's like, way to fundamentally misunderstand what the story was about. But
Mm-hmm.
on the other hand, Jordan Peele did draw inspiration from the Stepford Wives in making Get Out, and you can see on just a very, I mean, obviously he's more so focusing it on systemic racism in America compared to the original film is more, it's very first wave feminism. So it's still doing its own thing, but you know, thematically there's like some inspiration drawn there and it works, unlike the remake, which I despise. Like, no offense to Nicole Kidman, she's fabulous in many things, but like, no.
Interesting. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's some work and some don't.
Yeah.
And they remake them. There's no doubt about it.
It's a really interesting concept to have people from the action background like yourself transition into directing, because you have such a particular expertise that you're, not to homogenize all filmmakers, but the more traditional directing first directors might not be able to do. Because I love seeing what Chad Stahelski has been able to do in moving from stunts to directing, because when you see the way that he puts action together, it just looks so much better than kind of the generic soulless type of action that is sometimes present in Hollywood, where people don't really get to create. It's more like they're there to fulfill a prompt, so to speak. And you know, you can just tell that he knows action because you have longer takes. You can actually see what people are doing, because I can't stand when people overly edit action and I can't see. It's the same issue I have where if you have a big dance number and you don't show me the entire dancer from head to toe, then it's like Gene Kelly would be rolling in his grave right now if he saw what you were doing to the art of dance on film. It's like, that's not how you do it. So I mean, I want to offer all my encouragement to you to put yourself out there as not just second unit directing, but directing, you know, directed by Damon Caro, just because I want to see what you would do, you know?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. The funny thing is, and I've said this, problem is I'm not a starving artist anymore. You know, I'm very comfortable now, and I'm like, so it may happen, it may not. It doesn't make who I am or break who I am. I'm one of those, as much as I mean, it doesn't matter what I'm doing. If I'm folding the laundry, cleaning the bathroom, I am all in. That is my job, and I am passionate about it. But I live to work, not I work to live, not live to work. You know, so yeah, Chad's done amazing, as has Dave. You know, it's amazing. Those guys on the first, Chad and I met at 19, I think, or 20, 19 or 19, 20 years old, or same age roughly. Then Dave, we met, I don't know, 5 years later or something. But you know, I look back and, you know, Chad had a great career and we sort of helped Dave get in the business. And, you know, Chad and I came up different routes in the business. But, you know, if I go back to the first 300, Chad was my assistant coordinator and fight choreographer, assistant fight choreographer, assistant stunt coordinator for me. And Dave was a performer, stunt performer. And then just after that movie, we bought the building that the address was 8711. That's why we named it that. That our LLC, and they've done amazing things. I ended up leaving after about 5-6 years and left it to them, and they did. Yeah, there's been no greater success as far as transition. There's been others for sure, and good directors who have transitioned from the action world, but you know, I have to say monetarily, actually, Dave he's done massive movies, and he tends to lean more in the comedy side, which he always had that sense of humor. He's very good at it. And yeah, it's just amazing what those guys have done. So super happy for them.
Yeah, because even if you don't have the background in it, I feel like you should know when to just let action people do their thing. If I go back and watch the Rush Hour films, part of why those films work so well is because they just let Jackie Chan go. Because you got Jackie Chan in your movie, you don't need to overly edit it. You just turn the camera on and let him just unleash all of his Jackie Chan-ness on the other stunt performers in the sequence with him. And it's just so much fun to watch, because it's just, at that point, I mean, you have somebody that's at the top of their field. What do you need to do? You just 100%. Let them go.
And then, you know, the thing that can let's say, cause that not to happen depends on the project, depends on the director. If they do have, because there's a handful, in my opinion, this is my opinion, handful that do understand action. And obviously Snyder is one of them. He'd have been a great stuntman. I've always said that about him. And there's a handful of others, but most that I've encountered, or when I watch projects, you kind of go, yeah, you probably could have given the second unit director a little more power or creativity. But the problem is sometimes it's ego. They want to take credit for it, or they micromanage, and there's all sorts of personalities. Some aren't fans of it, even though they're doing an action film. It doesn't feel like, at least they're a fan of it, but then they're insecure and they want to. So there's, it's the movie business is just like life. You get people that, let's say, are some have greater control over their ego than others, and we're all working on it. It's a constant daily exercise for me. So that's one thing that's amazing, like working with Snyder, is his ego is so in check that he's not worried about trying to prove something. He does his thing, and was so giving and freeing with go do your thing. And then he had key points. Oh, how about this? What do you think? I want this. Or sometimes, boards, like the beginning of BVS, that was all his boards. I didn't do anything but copy his boards of the death of the Waynes, where most of the other, when it comes to a large fight, he can't board that, nor would he want to. He's like, go do your thing, and then come back, and it's like, oh, cool. Maybe it's 90% of it's there. You can look at the BVS warehouse fight, Martha Rescue. It's literally shot for shot. Most of them were, because he and I had very similar tastes. And so that was, you get spoiled working with people like that. And there are others too, don't get me wrong, but I've had a long history with him that may be over now, unfortunately, just because of, I'm doing more second unit and he doesn't use it as much. And, he had his son shoot Rebel Moon second unit. So it may be the end of an era, but I could never thank him for the journey we had with that. So,
but here's the thing. If Eli starts being the main director on his own projects, then all of a sudden somebody needs to do second unit again. So, I mean,
could be, unless I'm busy doing my own stuff or on something else. But yes, 100%. You never know. I'm not hoping or wishing. I'm just stating the facts.
Yeah. No, I think micromanaging is fine when it's at the right times for the right things. But I think that the scale of making a movie is so large that you have to be able to let other people do things. Because for me, doing what I do just by myself at home, making videos for YouTube, I'm doing basically everything, depending on what I'm talking about. If I need to text someone, a friend, if it's a very specific political reference that I need, and they're more familiar with Latin American history than me, and I'm like, okay, so what was that thing that I need, so then I know where to look. But for the most part, it's like I write the thing, I record the thing, I edit the thing, I make the thumbnail, I have to do everything. But you can't be that controlling when you're doing a feature film. You have to let other people fly. Like, I love Baz Luhrmann. His wife Catherine Martin does the costumes, so he has said in interviews that she's such a genius because she can take his chicken scratch of saying what he wants, but then she actually makes it real, because that's not
so cool.
He might have an idea of what he wants, but fashion is not first and foremost what he can create the way she can create. So at some point he has to let her go do 100%. Her magic, and of course she does, and that's why
100%. And by the way, for those who want to take all the credit, it's not the case. No matter, in their head, they can try and take that credit, but everyone on the crew knows, otherwise why would you need crews? Now, again, creatively, they have the final say, or the studio does, depending on how big the project is. So that's okay. But Yeah, it's a little, it's almost humorous at this point where I just, oh, okay, I see. You don't want to spread the credit around. I see. It's interesting. And
It
some do,
feels
some do,
it
some
feels
don't.
like building a house of cards if you're really trying to, be your own hype, like unwarranted hype, and then people are going to figure it out. If we're talking about somebody like Zach, I know that there's a lot of fans of his that are very intense about trying to defend him online. I personally don't do that, just because to me I don't think he needs help. I think he's doing just fine because he's booked, he's busy, and everybody who works for him knows how he is, and the people who are hiring him knows how he is. Dude's fine. He's got a mansion in Pasadena. What am I gonna do? Like, I'm gonna fight some random person whose opinion means nothing. It's like it doesn't make a difference. I think that the people who are a terror on movie sets, that comes out.
It
Just
does.
like if you're wonderful to everybody, that will also come out. So you
Correct.
can't hide anymore. Everybody has a phone, like even if you're doing the good kind of yelling, people recorded Tom Cruise when he was yelling at people for not following COVID protocol on set or something
Right.
like that. And then
Right.
that got leaked to the press. It's like
Yeah.
you can't hide anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's true. It's true. Well, ultimately, I mean, you can't hide ultimately in the end. It's all gonna, in my belief, it all, we have to answer for everything, good
Yeah.
and bad. And
Well,
that's good. It's called karma.
actually, before I circle back to asking you, specific stuff about things on your IMDb page.
It's sun setting, and I don't have a studio like you do at home. So
Well, it's just a ring light. And the thing is that online content creation has become such a big business in and of itself that it's not even like you have to pay an obscene amount of money to get
yeah,
lights for just filming stuff at home.
yeah,
Everybody's
yeah.
got to make a TikTok with the new dance that I don't do TikToks, but
Right, right, right,
stuff
right.
like that. When we talk about the truth coming out, I don't think you're online that much, but I did just want to, for my own amusement, ask, are you aware of the fact that after SnyderCon 2.0, the little incident with DJ and sort of yourself as well kind of went viral online, where the person asked the question that, Jeff Johns' name got brought up,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
DJ goes, which one was that? Was that the
yeah,
Jeff Johns one? And then he
yeah,
just throws the mic on the ground and
yeah.
storms off, and you joined him, and it was just so funny. And because I was sitting in the front, so I was filming the whole thing for my channel, and I panned over and I caught DJ flipping the bird, and people were making like meme edits out of it. And
I did. You're correct. I don't. I'm a dinosaur. I literally have no social media, and I did. Obviously, people will text me things like that, so I
yeah,
knew that obviously it was well received
mm-hmm.
In the Snyder fan base.
Yeah.
Um, but no, I didn't know. I didn't know any further than that. So whatever. The next day, I saw a couple of things, but
Yeah, it went a little viral at least.
that's
And I know because some people were tagging me because they were specifically using my footage, because the Vero stream, the cameras are just what they are, but
good.
I'm a person, so I can move like this. So because I was the one who caught him flipping the bird, and people just thought that was so funny. I think it's also because Zach, if he's at an event like that, he's kind of more friendly and on good behavior, whereas DJ, I guess, just had enough, and he was like, oh no, it's
Yeah,
been a few years now and I'm not going to hide my opinion anymore.
yeah. Well, DJ wears his feelings on his sleeve. I love him for it. He's a
Yeah.
good friend of mine, and so yeah, he's the one. He's the one. I'm kind of right in the middle. But he
Yeah.
he and I would terrorize Zach when we'd make movies because he'd be like, "No, this has to be this." He'd go, "Oh, guys, really?" So yeah, I remember Zach sort of chuckling, and he goes, "Yeah," because it was asked, "Well, do you think you'll ever make a project?" He goes, "Yeah." As everybody was sort of calming down, Zach goes, "Yeah, I think probably not." Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. He chuckled and just
Because I feel like you
maintained his
would
cool.
never pull a stunt like that, but because DJ did it, you were like, well, I'll join in on this. Like, this is a fun time.
I don't know if I'd never. It would depend on what is said. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I certainly have a line, but
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah. No, but I respect that type of honesty. I mean, putting aside the humor of that moment of just, you know, it was so camp. It's just like, oh, I'm gonna throw down the mic and I'm gonna storm off in a huff. I
Yeah.
love that. For me personally, I can't speak for everybody. I respect for people to be honest. And I just feel like oftentimes there's this veneer over people's behavior if they're in the public eye in Hollywood where
Mhm.
and that's fine if you want to be professional, but I feel like when certain lines are crossed, I would rather people be honest. And I
Mhm.
feel like not everybody does that when they should. So, in that moment, it's like, I don't know if I had actually seen any interviews. I don't think I was all that familiar with DJ before that, but I was like, that's my new favorite person right there.
Oh,
I don't
okay.
know
Yeah.
this man, but
That's
I love
funny.
him now.
Yeah. No, he's always been, um, he speaks his mind for sure. And,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, look, I agree with you. And I think it's tricky, right? If somebody is in the public eye to the
Hmm.
extent of what Snyder is, or, you know,
Hmm.
various individuals, it's a bit trickier because the microscope gets
Yeah.
really big that you're
Yeah.
under. And that's half the reason I'm or I don't know if it's half, but it's a part of the reason I'm not on social media. I just, like you stated earlier, I'm not interested in convincing people. When
Hmm.
I was younger, I was far more vocal about various things, and my personal beliefs and opinions. And I, you know, push comes to shove, I'm never going to hide my true feelings or beliefs of it, but I also
Hmm.
don't have to share them as frequently as I did in the
Yeah.
past. And so social media, I would, if social media had been around when I was younger, oh my gosh, the things I would have went, oh, why did I say that? Why did I say that? Because, you know, we're all growing, and, you know, the tomorrow us is going to hopefully know a little more than the today, much less the decade later and the two
Hmm.
decade later. And you're just like, oh, what was I thinking? So,
Yeah.
and, but, yeah, love DJ. Good
Yeah,
man.
he's another person that I've been trying to get on here, but I don't know what happened. I know he at one point he was interested, but then he had surgery and he needed to recover, and I'm like, oh, of course. And then I don't know. It's just it's just been radio silence for a few months now, but also the strikes kind of threw off my equilibrium because I didn't know all of what I was allowed to say or not say online because they
Yeah.
had all this weird verbiage about don't promote things, and I'm like, if I talk about something, is that promoting?
Right.
But
Yeah.
I'm, you know, and I always wanted to make it clear to everybody watching me. It's like I support the strikes. I never want to do anything that comes across like I'm caring about stepping over workers that are striking. Not that I think that I could even do that, but you know,
Yeah.
yeah, it was a weird time. But maybe I'll you know
You
type
should.
in
Yeah. I know that
Nepotism.
he went through that. He actually went through two. I'm not going to
Oh wow,
share his business, but yeah, so yeah, he was busy with that,
yeah.
um, and then he went in to help on Rebel Post. So
Mm.
he's been engulfed in that.
Oh
So
yeah.
it could be a big
Well,
part of it.
definitely, you know, don't want to cause more stress because I like for people to have a fun time when they come to chat with me and not have
Yeah,
it
yeah,
be
yeah.
not have
No,
it be stressful.
yeah,
So circling back to your IMDb, you have a lot of credits, so I don't want to go through and meticulously pick apart every bit thing that you've done here and there, but I did have a question about obviously people know you for working with Zack and whatnot, but one of the earlier brushes with the superhero world was you were on Ben Affleck's Daredevil.
hmm that's
And
right.
I think if I'm remembering correctly, it said stunt double. There were so many different titles of your occupation on your page.
Right,
And
right.
that probably is a question in and of itself of do these all just mean the same thing or are they actually very different jobs? But were you stunt doubling a specific character or was it more so like a Swiss Army knife type of stunt person of I do what they need me to do for
No,
whatever?
some jobs are like that where you double multiple people, and it could even be, you know, smaller actors. But no, I doubled Colin Farrell on that.
Did you have the costume on and everything?
I had the costume. I had no hair. Yes, yes.
Oh my god, because I was gonna say, I was like, well, I think Ben is very tall, so I don't know if they would have. And that's not me saying that you're some teeny tiny little
No,
peanut,
no,
but Ben is he's
I like
enormous.
facts. I like facts. No, I'm not.
Yeah.
Ben's like, what is he?
Like
I used to be
6'5" or something.
5'10". I've literally lost an inch from landing on my head or just jumping on my feet. Yeah, I'm 5'9". So yeah, Ben's what, 6'3" or 4" or something crazy.
He's
Yeah.
enormous.
No, that
So
would have been quite a stretch.
yeah.
Yeah. So
Wow.
yeah. So that
Wow.
was that. And then I was I sort of I coordinated some of second unit when I was there and things like that too. So I kind of was Jeff Amato ran that show, and I worked with him for several years on various projects, and so I was an assistant to him and double Colin on that. Yeah, that was one of the rare movies that was shot in LA. It was a big deal back in whatever year that was, 2002. And this, the script was really good. I didn't love the movie, unfortunately. It kind of had a different tone when it came out, but the script was really good. It had a very darker sort of, it was an R tone. And there is an R, I think I have the DVD. There's an R cut of it.
Yeah.
DVD, but yeah, that's funny.
I think this might just be a generational thing, but I have a lot of fond nostalgia for that movie just because of, I don't know, I'm sorry, Jennifer Garner doing a sword fight while Evanescence is Bring Me to Life is playing. Like, that's it's the same way that I think I also just really love a good soundtrack. So even for Halle Berry's Catwoman, the fact that the basketball scene has Mystique Scandalous, and I love that song. So it's like, you can't play that scene and expect me to not be having a good time because of how much I love the song.
Wow.
So yeah, it's like that you hear certain songs and they transport you back to just like a time, and your brain just gets flooded with happy chemicals. So and that to me is like one of those movies that I think I just also like, that kind of darker aesthetic that I think earlier 2000s movies had. Even the Wesley Snipes Blade films, even when he's having his more comedic moments, I just think that tonally they did things that just don't really happen in as many big franchise blockbusters nowadays, because they really try hard to chase the PG-13 rating. And when I say PG-13, it's more like PG-10 or PG-9, really. That's just not for me. I'm not interested in those types of movies. Clearly not, since I've got a giant House of Gucci poster, and that was like that's my favorite movie. So
you're not going to watch Rebel Moon?
I like Rebel Moon, but also that it's not having a theatrical release, and that is like a real knock against the movie for me, because I'm very salty about the streaming corporations not doing physical media, not allowing more of their original releases to have theatrical. Like Glass Onion is the only streaming film that they've had that I actually was able to see at a cinema. And it was only playing for 1 week. I saw it 6 times because I was not playing games. I was like, I'm going to see it as many times as I can. So that ended up being 6. And yeah, like I'm not going to see Rebel Moon at the cinema because it's not available for me.
No.
And I'm not blaming you for this. I don't want you taking any of this hostility.
No,
it's
I
not
don't
directed
control
at you.
the distribution, so no offense taken. I don't know. I mean, it's interesting. You would think, especially something of this caliber, they would want to do a theatrical, but I don't believe it. You've said it's not, right?
They have 4 locations in the entire world.
Oh, they are going to do
4 locations, like 4 theaters in the entire world.
Where are they?
Like, one is LA, one is London, one is New York, and I don't remember where the other one is. But it's not even like, the entire city of LA. It's like one theater at one. I don't even know if there's multiple showings. It's so limited that I'm just like, how is your company hemorrhaging money and you won't put it in the cinema when you know this man has rabid fans who will see it an obscene amount of times? Like, I don't play about I saw House of Gucci 25 times at the cinema. That's my record. I will never beat it because that's just impossible for me to beat. I saw Baz Luhrmann's Elvis 18 times. I saw Avatar: The Way of Water 15 times, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a rewatcher. I'll go.
Mm-hmm.
Especially because I know how short the window can be. Like, you really don't know how long a movie will be available for. So
Right.
I want like the theatrical experience as many times as I can get it. If the movie
Yes.
really hits, it has to be like top 1 or 2 or 3 of the year for me to do that. I don't do that for everything, but you know, if
Mm-hmm.
it's one of the best of the year, which I would imagine Rebel Moon would be for me if it was available at the
Mm-hmm.
cinema. But
Wait, let me ask you though, are you going to watch it on
I'm
Netflix,
gonna
or are you
watch it, but like
watch?
it's not the same to watch it at home. What
No.
like with on my computer with my cat like yelling at me and like I don't have a set like I don't have a okay Zach
You don't have a TV?
no
You don't? All right. I think
I
you
don't even
might
own
want to, with
a
all the
house. Do you think I
streaming
own a
services.
TV?
You, how big is the monitor on your computer?
It's not very big.
All
Like
right.
it's not that much bigger than like I have a large laptop screen because if I'm, doing what
Yeah.
I'm doing,
Yeah.
it's better to have a large laptop screen. But even that, it's whatever the maximum amount of inches of MacBook Pro can be. That's the
Got
one
it.
that I have. And
Mm.
then my monitor, I didn't even buy that monitor. It was gifted to me. So like I don't
Got it.
like if I can't buy a house, I'm not gonna buy a TV. Like I pay for my AMC monthly pass so I can just go multiple times per week. It's like $24 per month to see 3 shows per week and like it's all covered. So that's
Got it.
what like up to 12 times, 12 to 14, 15 times per month at the
Yeah.
cinema for $24 is like what do you like? Of course, I'm going to do that. So I live at the cinema. I'm either at
Gotcha.
home with
That's
my
cool.
cat or I'm at the cinema.
I
And I
didn't.
would use those on Rebel Moon if it was there, but it's not.
Right.
So
I didn't. Obviously, TV was a must if you're in the industry before streaming and
yeah.
computers when I was coming up, right? So
Well, sure. I
even
had one
when
when I was a kid, but I'm
when I
not.
was sleeping on a couch, we invested our money in the
Yeah.
TV because we were all into movies. So you might want to consider buying a larger monitor before a house. It might I'm just throwing that out. As an older guy with a little experience.
I
At least
can't.
the Rebel.
I've got to pay for like get headshots. I am looking forward to the film though. I do have questions about it, but I have other stuff that I wanted to get through first. You have said that you met Zach outside of the business and it was before he had made the transition to feature films. Can you elaborate a bit on that story? Because if you're not meeting in show business, I'm so curious as to how you two would have met.
Yeah, well, let me be clear on that. I didn't meet him as far as a job related, or we weren't collaborating. I did meet him. I went to go train him. We had a mutual friend, which we
Oh.
still have a mutual friend, Kurt Johnstad, who co-wrote Rebel Moon with him, who co-wrote 300 with him. And Kurt and I had been friends for, I don't know, 4 years, something like that. And he and Zach had been friends for I don't know, a year, maybe 2, not even. And he kept telling Zach about me, and he goes, "You got to meet this guy, blah 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 blah. Why don't I set up?" And Zach had trained martial arts when he was younger, and wanted to get back into it, and that's Kurt and I knew each other from climbing. And again, we didn't meet in the business. We met on the climbing wall in Malibu at Ape Face, out on where they filmed Planet of the Apes back in the 60s. So basically, that's Zach, I believe, was doing a Budweiser, and again, don't hold me to this, but I think it was a Budweiser spot, a Super Bowl spot he was doing. This would have been very beginning of January 96, 5 or 6. And I basically came and trained him at lunch, and we met and, just hit it off. And then he had me come and train he and some of his family at his house. And then he and I would train together after that. And we just started to become friends and find out interests of both being in the business, and then the interests of projects, and fans of a lot of the same genres. Obviously we're very similar in age, so we grew up on a lot of the the same films. And then, you know, we talked about, because I was actually, I had been in the business for, I don't know, 3-4 years at that point. He had doing commercials and I was in TV and features. And we always said, oh, it'd be really cool to work together someday, you know? And it all worked out.
Yeah, because you had mentioned in other interviews that you two bonded over common interests. Were those the interests, the martial arts and just having the same taste in films, or was it other
Yes.
stuff?
Yeah. A lot of the projects, like, sorry, my light keeps falling down. I don't know what's going on with this thing, but the, you know, like literally this would have been 97. And, you know, we had before, I think this was even before Tim Burton had remade, I don't remember what year he remade Planet of the Apes, but, you know, Zach and I had talked about, you know, we had in our sessions we were done and we were just talking about films that really inspired us in the sci-fi world specifically was the original Planet of the Apes. And, you know, how cool it would be. And we were casting people and, you know, literally it took this long for Rebel. Another example is I remember, I forget if maybe it was episode 1 had come out and we were disappointed, let's put it that way, in how Star Wars, the sort of, we were, you know, kids of the original 3, but especially the episodes 3 and 4, Star Wars and Empire. And back then I remember him saying, man, you know, I wish I could get a meeting with Lucas. And, you know, he hadn't even done a movie yet. He was still doing commercials. And he's like, you know, let me make an R-rated Star Wars movie for our generation, you know, and that was things we would joke about and talk about, and just films that inspired us. And, you know, here we are decades later, and he actually has done that, and it's about to come out. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, but I think it's better to, instead of just putting your own impression of something onto an IP that already exists, if you can make it your own anyway,
way better.
Then yeah, because I mean, obviously, Star Wars has its inspiration from other art and artists, and also I think that I like when stories come directly from the source, so to speak. Of course, you can have the inspirations from wherever they come from, but I like watching let me specify. I like watching George Lucas's Star Wars because I know ideologically what he's addressing and what is weighing heavily on him that is pushing him to make those stories, whether it's the Viet Cong or the Iraq War. You know, he is so clear about his intention and what he wants to talk about with his stories. And I like that comes across. It's the same reason why, even though technically speaking, James Cameron's Avatar films are now, I guess you could call them a big IP, but it's so directly from him because he's been this hardcore environmentalist since he was a teenager. And that's so apparent in the story and in the emotional fabric of every character and everything that happens in those movies. You know, it's like it's coming from him. So, you know, that's why I'm more interested in seeing Rebel Moon as its own thing, so that way I can know, okay, so what are you drawing inspiration from? What is eating away at you that you're now putting into your art? You know, like that's more what I want to see. But
100%.
I mean, the spectacle is fun, but it's like if there's nothing deeper, you know, behind the spectacle, then it's all gonna be just shallow and disposable in the end. At least that's how I feel. Some people are fine with spectacle on its own, and that's
right.
fine.
Right. No, I agree. I agree with that. And again, to each their own. If somebody likes that, fantastic. People go to the movies for different reasons. People need stories for different reasons. And for me, if it's honest expression, that's great. And it's not propaganda. That, to me, from either side, that's the kind of stuff I like, because it's an honest expression of a story. And you know, I guess you can feel sometimes when you watch something and you're like, oh, you get taken out of it. You hit this giant speed bump because it's not really the ebbing and flowing from the story and the characters. It feels like things are being put in to just incongruently, more as propaganda versus, hey, how about a human story, and let that express that we can all identify with, or the potential to identify with. But it's this honest expression, great. That I think you're speaking of. It's the honest expression of, that's to me what I like, and you feel it. You feel it whether it's a story or a movie or a conversation, and it's, that sort of in the moment fluidity. It's this beautiful orchestra that has highs and lows and everything in between.
So I noticed that when you do a lot of these interviews, there's a lot of emphasis on Zack. And that's why I've tried to ask you a lot more just about your own, who is Damon Caro in his own right. Like, obviously a lot of what you've done is with Zack, but I just wanted to make sure that we were laying groundwork, that we're talking to you as a person and that we're not talking to Zack Snyder's right hand, because I don't see you that way. I see you as your own artistic creative person with your own brain and whatnot. The other thing I noticed is just that it's like, how many times can they ask you about the Batman warehouse scene? Don't get me wrong, it looks fabulous, but I mean, it's not the only action you've created. And I'm just like, okay. I mean,
well,
basically,
I literally just had a podcast on that about a month ago. So apparently a lot, and there's more coming. So. It's touching, though. It's touching. I mean, it makes, certainly I don't hate it. It's wonderful to have.
I mean, really
put something together that has touched people that deeply and is still touching people. But again, that's not the only one. When people talk to me about it, for sure. There's various. I just think because Batman is so beloved by so many people, that's probably why that one keeps coming around.
Yeah, my passive aggressive posturing was just more so a prelude to me bringing up the fact that I don't like the sucker punch erasure when it's anybody from Zack's team doing interviews, or even Zack himself when he pops on various channels. I don't like that not enough people talk about Sucker Punch because it's legendary and it's iconic. And I think the erasure of it feels very sexist in my personal opinion. And it's part of the legacy of Zack Snyder and all of you who have collaborated with him so frequently. So I would like to talk about Sucker Punch. That was my whole passive aggressive posturing. It was just a lead up to me being like, Sucker Punch is awesome. Let's talk about Sucker Punch. Because obviously we know that there was a lot of back and forth with the meddling and people not understanding it and that impacting the final product and whatnot. But I still think that it absolutely stands on its own. And in fact, if people force my hand and they force me to do a ranking, perhaps at least partially stubbornly, I will put Sucker Punch as number one, just because, like, technically are some of the other films, is there more going on in them where if you're trying to tally up points, you would put other films first? But I'm like, yeah, but just emotionally, I want to put Sucker Punch first because it just, I love a girl gang handling things as they should, and there's just a lot in there. And for you as the action guy, I feel like there's a lot for you to dig into because there's such a variety in genre across these different dream sequences where a lot of the main, I guess, bombastic action happens. And I'm curious about, I don't know, you can approach it any way you'd like of how you want to start talking about that, because I feel like I haven't heard you talk about it as much as you get asked about the DC stuff. If there was a certain through line that you're trying to maintain stylistically, or if you are kind of making them a bit more separate and really embracing the inspirations of those genres and the aesthetics of whether it's fantasy or whether it's, this kind of more, I guess, Asian action with katanas and stuff like that. And you got robots on a train and whatever. Like, there's just so much going on. So I don't know if you just want to start digging into anything that you'd like to about that, because I'm all ears. Anything you want to dig into with that.
That was a fantastic project, and it was really a joy to do. And a lot of us, we really like that film. As put it up there is one of his best in his camp, I feel. But it sort of got sandwiched between not in like time period, but just it was between Watchmen and it was between Man of Steel. So it sort of got forgotten. And I was surprised that it wasn't more widely received. And clearly, I think that as usual, the DVD extended version is by far the better movie. We've joked about, hey, can we ever do a director's cut of that? We've joked about trying to go back after he did Justice League. I don't think it'll ever happen, but
there is a hashtag for it. It's
yes, for sure,
Snyder
for
Punch.
sure. I don't know, but I don't know that it has the leverage. It doesn't have any. Sorry, I just needed to. My wife's asked me if I want anything for dinner. Unfortunately, I don't know that we'll ever see that. I hope I'm wrong. But yes, to answer your question about styles and tone, there obviously had to be a central thread that carried between all of the dream sequences. However, they needed to be unique and stylized. So yes, the samurai. I mean, that was going to be 5 samurai at one point, and then we did the budget and we're like, okay, how much are they costing? How about 3? Great. I remember Zach calling me over. We were in Canada and we were prepping, and I came to his office and he's like, they're this much. Oh, wow. Okay. He goes, what do you think we could, do you think we could do it with 2 less? Absolutely. Absolutely. We'll make it just as powerful. And I love that sequence. I love the samurai sequence. Probably that World War I is great too. And Bullet Train is one of, that's something that a lot of people just, when we did that sequence, were like, how'd you do that? That's insane. But obviously the first sequence, it's paying homage to the, Kurosawa sort of vibe. And then World War I, if you see, it's very cutty and, more visceral, which by nature needed to be, as well as there's a fantasy overlay of it, of what happens there. The orc sequences, it's a little.
I mean, visually, it looks very Lord of the Rings as far as creature design goes.
It was.
Which I love.
We had such small stages to work with, though. It was crazy. So a lot of that, when I see that sequence, I'm like, it feels small compared to what I wanted to do with it. I still love it, and then the train was a blast to do, and trying to do the stunt phys for that was crazy because
Are those guys in suits, like gray pajamas?
Yeah. Yes, it was. That's what the robots ended up being. Yeah, they were gray, or I have some stills of it somewhere, gray or green. I can't remember. Probably gray. But just to understand the concept of it, I did sort of a blocking stunt viz that had the opening, and then just this sort of the camera going through crazy, bringing it up on ropes, because I didn't have access to cranes or anything, and just so when the camera's going over Baby Doll and she's slicing all the robots and the camera's moving all around her, just to give Viz effects an idea of what the structure, and then that's how we take that blueprint and then we splice it and go, okay, what's live action, what's CG, and what's a blend, and that was always, and that was great. We did that right before Man of Steel because we had a very good blueprint of mixing a lot of live action just in that long sequence and digi and all the CG takeovers and blending it all. So that was perfect for us to go into the next movie, because we figured a lot of bugs out and sort of discovered a lot of things that worked, and carried that over into the next projects for sure. But yeah, it's a powerful story. It's the narration at the end says it all. And it's it's a bright movie. It's about combating the demons that we all have or will encounter, and it's triumphant and it's powerful. So yeah, I too am a fan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I've often felt firmly about the idea that I think more people would have understood the material if that film had come out after the Me Too movement.
I agree.
Because the Me Too movement, I think, put certain issues into the general public conscious a bit more, not saying that people even necessarily understand or agree with things that they should, but they're at least aware that there is an issue that
I
is
agree. I
ongoing.
agree with you with that
Yeah.
point. Absolutely. I think it would have been more well received for sure.
Blue Jones, I think, is the scariest villain out of all of Snyder's villains.
Yeah.
I really do believe that.
Yeah. No, he's good. He's good. But a lot of films come out before their time.
Mm.
I did Fight Club, the one and only time I worked with David Fincher, but I was on that show for 7 months, and that movie was not well received at all at the theater. And to this day, it is more massive now. I mean, I just did an interview, I think, approximately a year ago, or not maybe not that long, but they're doing a 25th anniversary book
Mhm.
on the making of that movie, and
Mhm.
um, I just wow, that was almost 25 years ago. That's incredible. But that movie, it took a while. It took a while because it was so layered too. It's so layered, and a lot of times it takes a few watchings, and that's what some people. I always tell them that I didn't really understand Sucker Punch. Like I said, try it again. Go watch the director's cut, the extended cut, and just give it another try. Maybe even two more tries, and you might, because that film is very layered as well
Mhm.
about the nuances of what's in there. Uh,
Mhm.
but yeah, I think unfortunately that it's hard to combat the timing when you come out, right? But
Yeah.
certainly there's films like that, and there's plenty more that escape me now. But I've thought of over the years, and many people I'm sure have discussed that. It took a long time for people to look back and go, "Oh wow, this movie was way ahead of its time." So.
Mhm. Samantha Wynn came on my channel a little while back, and she talked about working on that movie.
Mm,
And one of the things I didn't know until she told me was that she actually had to do a stunt where Oscar, as Blue Jones, has to push her into the mirror.
mm,
And I thought that was so interesting for her to bring up just because that's not something you would think of when you think about stunt performers and what they're there to do. You think of the really big, oh, they're going to fall down the stairs,
mm,
they're going to do
mhm,
a
mhm.
fancy flip or a kick that a regular actor who has never trained to do that
Yep.
would be able to do.
And I'm gonna go home.
Is that something that you oversee as part of your job, or does that get delegated to? I'm just curious about how the
Mhm.
distribution of labor works for stuff like that,
Yeah.
where it's not something that's necessarily big in scope, but it is something that requires attention and care because there are safety concerns to think about. But then you also have to balance that with making sure that it's captured in such a way that it translates the way that it needs to for what's happening in that scene on a narrative level.
Yeah, I would absolutely. I was involved in every aspect of it, and then there are initially design of it, shoot a test of it, show that to Snyder, um, and to make sure it's safe,
Mm-hmm.
it's violent, it's conveying the correct emotion and energy that he wants it to have for that scene. Now, there can be times when if I'm doing second unit, then I might not be there for something of that size, and there's two units going on at one time. But I've overseen it for sure to make sure that it's A, safe, and B, it looks correct, it looks powerful, it looks visceral, it looks violent.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you need to do that, but like I said, and there's some projects like when I did Wonder Woman, I was on my own second unit almost literally 98% of the time. I think at the end we were on set together, Patty and I, where I was able to, but I had Ryan Watson was coordinating first unit, and I had nothing to do with other than the stuff we were creating. But there were little things like let's say smaller gags that I had nothing to do with because I was completely swamped trying to shoot all the bigger stuff on the second unit.
Mm-hmm.
So that can happen sometimes, but that's why you have, when you're depending on how busy your film is, your project is. I had Tim Rigby, who was my one of my coordinators. And so when I was doing second unit, he was coordinating, and then Alan Joe was there, Wayne Watson, those guys were, or Wayne Dalglish. And, so sometimes you have, including yourself, 5 coordinators, because some are prepping and you need, you've got to have someone of that qualification there to make sure everything's being prepped properly, shot correctly on first unit. Safety, because I'm directing when I'm there. You can't help but get out of that mode, but I can't have the detailed eye that a stunt coordinator has to have, because that's why their focus is singular. And so it's a good question.
Yeah. Well, and it's just interesting to hear more about those smaller details of jobs like yours, just because if you're like myself and you want to look at the massive machine and know how every single part works, to really know how everything comes together to get an incredible final finished work of art, I think that the details of those things do matter, and especially for that moment.
No, I just found it.
That's the big moment of the film for me. For as much as people might want to celebrate the big spectacle, which, don't get me wrong, I love those, with, we've got dragons and orcs and we've got all of these cool things. But for me, the moment of the movie is her finally stabbing him. Oh, just the entire build up to that, because it's the entire movie has built up to that moment, and when she finally gets him, oh, it's my favorite thing. Oh, finally.
Yes.
She got him.
Yes. Justice being dispensed is a wonderful thing to bestow and to view.
Yeah.
Especially in the cinematic world, you can right some wrongs that are harder to right in reality. It can give you strength to keep going in real life.
Yeah, generally it's frowned upon to go stab people, but
yes, I'm not conveying violence. I am a strong supporter of self-defense, though. So.
Yeah, of course. And it's interesting, earlier in our conversation, you talked a bit about shooting things in high speed to be able to slow them down. And I immediately thought about how I was already going to ask you about this in Sucker Punch, where there's at least 2 instances that I can think of off the top of my head where you have a punch happening and you kind of pause on the contact of the fist hitting the face. There's one where Blue Jones is hitting, I don't know the character's name, but I think it's Patrick Sabongui. Yeah. So there's the part where he's hitting him, and there's a part on the bullet train where I think it's Rocket is like she's getting hit.
She gets nailed. Yeah.
So, I mean, is that a you thing? Is that a Zack thing? Is that both?
That is both for sure. Because look, let's be honest, the genius who to my knowledge really did that was Scorsese in Raging Bull first. I mean, he's the master of that. You gotta. So those are little homages back to we did it in Watchmen, did it in 300, and again, it's all the timing and the placement of it. You can't use that stuff. I mean, you can use it whenever you want, but I feel when I'm watching something, again, the frame rates must serve to enhance the story, not jar you out of it, right? And that's what can happen sometimes, for my taste at least. So
yeah. Well, and I think when you have action, the general perception people have is that action is fast, which is true, but it's also nice to have those moments of just giving you as the audience a moment to kind of breathe and like catch your breath, and then we're back into it,
Yeah. And again, to me, I mean, there's plenty of fight sequences I've created, and whether even if it's not the director's choice, some sequences don't call for it. It's not the tone and the emotion. When you want to be rattled and be sort of incoherent and maybe not know where everything is, you need that. You need to be cutty, you need to be fast, and the high speed is a disservice in that point. But when there's those moments where you need to, you want to protract that emotion and take that time to feel something more or to see something coming. A lot of it is, to me, was based on, and Zack's, I can't really say why he's a big fan of it. That would be a Zack question, but you know, if you've ever been in a car accident or if you've been in a altercation, sometimes that same thing happens. You know, you hear people with near-death experiences, or you know, they come car crashes, and mothers that have their babies inside, and they end up lifting the car up with this insane adrenaline strength they get. But sometimes it seems like time is slowed under those insane pressure situations, and your adrenaline kicks in so much where you sort of have this, wow, people are moving slow almost. And so that was a big part of it for some of the action sequences, or when I feel like it's needed.
No, I like that. That makes a lot of sense, actually. Of just time can be perceived differently in different moments. You know, like time slows down, or it whooshes by, and all of a sudden, like, why that went by way fast.
Right.
I also wanted to ask about the Amazons in Zack Snyder's Justice League. Clearly, we're trying to put a spotlight on the women today. I know that I would probably get some very confused comments if I did an episode where we were just talking about Sucker Punch when there's a new movie coming out, and if I didn't ask anything about that. So that's why I wanted to make it a bit more well-rounded. But for Zack Snyder's Justice League, of course, one of the big revelations was the fact that there was this entire sequence with the Amazons and a mother box. I have a real soft spot for that sequence. I just love everything about it. But how did your understanding of the world building of who the Amazons are within, I guess, the mythos of the story influence the way you wanted to choreograph how they would fight?
Well, they're badass warriors, period, you know, for umpteen years. And they also they have this great history, but they also have, other than obviously Wonder Woman, you know, they have a style, and they have certain tools that they use and weapons that they use that date back, you know, for so many years. And it was really fun because, you know, I just finished, it was basically went right from, I started prepping Justice League, went to go shoot Wonder Woman, and then came right over to Justice League to keep going. So, you know, it was fresh in my mind, and we had already created these great sequences for Wonder Woman, and it was just an expression of or a continuation of what we had built and you know, the training we put these women through, and they were just studs. The beach battle, sorry to jump from Justice League, but back to Wonder Woman, was this massive, I mean, it was hardcore, and sun and sand and horses, and you know, we had these, it was just amazing what we got, and the ability we got when everybody worked so hard. And then moving it forward to Justice League, it was fun to play. We got to play with those Robo-Moco rigs for the horse sequences, because we did a little bit for some of the close-up work on Wonder Woman, but everything else we shot with real horses. So we were able to get a lot more elaborate with that sequence. But I'd actually sort of laid that sequence out before I left for Wonder Woman back in LA. So that was luckily that was already done. But I love that sequence too. It was really fun, and a lot of the same women we had in Wonder Woman. Obviously, it was almost entirely the same crew had come over, so we had a good shorthand at that point. And I'd shot with all of them in various sequences for Wonder Woman, yeah, it was fun. It was really fun.
Yeah. Well, and it's a small detail, and the action hasn't even really kicked off at that point. But I love that when we first go inside, that you've got the entire room, and they're all basically like geared up, ready to spring into action. But the action hasn't even started yet. I just love, you know, it might not be what most people think of when they think of the scene. They're thinking about when the actual fighting has started. But I was rewatching it to prepare to talk to you, just to refresh my memory of it. And I love that detail of just seeing them all just, you know, they're staring it down and got whatever weapon they have, or they're ready to go. You know, like, whatever's about to happen, we're ready.
Yep. That's it. They remembered well that they know the history of that box, of that third box. So yeah, it was cool. It was really fun. And I think, trying to think, I think Zach shot a little bit. He shot the beginning, the dialogue in the beginning, and then he shot like the little piece with Connie and Samantha. But other than that, I shot everything once the fight broke out to all the travel. And yeah, it was fun. It was really fun. Yeah, he was swamped on that movie too.
Yeah.
The guy, he was, yeah, that was a rough one.
It's a bit more of a technical question, but I was really curious about the moment where when the box first starts to open and there's this burst of energy and a bunch of the Amazons get kind of thrown back.
Yeah.
And I was so curious about how that was achieved, if it's, you know, everyone is attached to something and you pull at the same time, or just because I don't think a wind machine on its own was gonna throw people back that hard.
It depends. A lot of that is dictated on how athletic someone is. Can they fake it enough, or others need some? And then, you know, obviously when it's if you want a bigger reaction, then we'd use, you know, more wires. But yeah, it's it was a combo of all that.
Yeah, because I didn't know if it would even practically make sense to try to get everybody fairly synchronized to all jump back at the same time. Because, you know, it was making me think of, I mean, would they try to Star Trek it? You know, when it's like, okay, the ship's going this way, everybody lean, and like everybody lean this way.
Yeah, the timing actually, that's we've Star Trek'd it in many films, especially when you're shooting the Batwing or the Batmobile, and yeah, 100%. Helicopter, yeah, we Star Trek it. There's much to be learned from Star Trek.
Yeah. No, I love it. I love it. I also wanted to ask, though, as far as Zack Snyder's Justice League, it's funny the timing of us finally having this conversation and whatnot, because one of the names attached to working on this project is Eunice Huthart. I don't know if I said her name correctly. My favorite film that I have seen in 2023 is a film called Polite Society. I don't know if you've seen it.
I have not.
Okay, so it's this British, I don't even know what genre to classify it as because it has all the genres, but the protagonist, she wants to be a stunt woman. Like that's her dream. And her idol is Eunice Huthart. And so throughout the movie, she's sending her emails. And you think it's just this kind of delusional girl sending emails to somebody who's clearly too famous and success is not going to get her emails. You're like, how would you even know how to email her? But at the end, Eunice actually has a voice cameo, and
that's awesome. I gotta see it. No,
yeah, you gotta. Oh my god, I love this movie because like there's action in it, there's comedy, it's got a family drama, but it's kind of like a heightened reality. So, for example, when she's getting into a fight or an argument with her school bully, they actually have a fight, but it's choreographed like an action thing. So if two kids were fighting at school, it wouldn't look like that, you know? Yeah. So it's got that heightened kind of, I mean, as a Baz Luhrmann fan, I watch and I'm like, oh, I love that it's not realistic. I love that everything is heightened, everything is over the top. Even when she's having a fight with her sister, they're like crashing through doors and stuff. So it's, yeah, I mean, I'm spoiling it a little bit, but I'm trying to sell you on the movie without giving away the entire plot.
Yeah, I appreciate that. No,
the trailer kind of gives it away the plot, so I would just watch the movie. I have it on physical, it's on my desk. But yeah, now that I've become a fan of that movie and having this full circle moment of realizing that Eunice worked on Zack Snyder's Justice League, I was curious about your history and your collaboration on that, because when I was going through your IMDb pages, you're both credited on Mr. and Mrs. Smith. So I don't know.
That's where we met. Yeah.
Okay.
So she was Angelina's double for years, and we met on Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and she's just a great human being. Really, just a great person. Super tough, and we had sort of said hi through mutual acquaintances since then. And then when we were going to England and I was going to be doing second unit, and I said, well, I reached out to her and introduced, because Zach was going over an early prep and we were prepping still here in LA. I said, look, she'd be great because they were, we needed somebody locally. And, we had some guys that I'd worked with, but scheduling wasn't working out. So I said, why don't we just go with Eunice and then, bring part of the team over and to support. And, that way you have your familiarity with them, and I'll be on second unit, blah, blah, blah. So it all worked out fantastic. And Zack loved her and still does. Yeah, she's great. She's super cool.
That was just such a cool thing to see that you both were credited on it. I don't know how the distribution of labor worked as far as what overlap there was with what you were doing, or if you had separate tasks to handle, but it was cool.
we honestly didn't. The way it worked out was I, again, had prepped for several months in LA, so we had a blueprint of most of the action, and some of my guys went over to double and then to do fight choreography and assistant coordinate. And then Eunice had her own guys there. And then I took some of my guys and we went to Wonder Woman and we split up. And then when they ended up coming over for Justice League, which was 3 or 4 months behind us, they were prepping, and I'd see them I'd see them in the commissary, and, Wonder Woman was nonstop. So, I talked to Eunice, and then I literally didn't really get back involved. I talked to Zack a little bit, but I didn't get back involved until we wrapped Wonder Woman, or just before, maybe the last week when we were back on the stages. I started going to the meetings. We started having big production meetings. So, but most of it was, I was all in second unit. I'd laid the blueprint, and then Eunice, filled in all the connective tissue, and as well as the team with my guys there as well. And so she was on first with Zack a lot, and I was shooting second unit. Sometimes she'd be on my unit, and, so different people bouncing around, like I said, when you have, and then you've got rehearsal going and that sort of thing. So yeah, it takes several.
Well, that's cool. Hopefully it won't be the last we see of you two.
Indeed.
Crossing paths creatively in this higher echelon of where you're at now, as opposed to, just being the stunt performer. Not knocking that work, of course. But...
So just, I mean, I don't think either of us are performing anymore, really. We're beyond that.
Driving, but
you never know. You never know. Yeah, I couldn't tell you the last time I did a stunt job, but you never know. You never know.
Yeah. No, I love that. I don't want to let you go without asking a little bit about Rebel Moon. I'm not going to press you too hard, just because I know that people tend to be very careful with what they talk about before a film's release. If you're willing to come back after at least part 1 is out, it's an open invitation whenever you're free. But obviously, if stuff is in the trailer, it's a little bit safer to say, well, I've seen this thing, so I know that exists. I'm a Sense8 fan. So when I saw names started getting announced for the lead cast, when I started seeing alumni from Sense8, I was going, oh, here we go. Mm-hmm. So when I saw Duna's name, I was like, oh, I was like, all you Zack Snyder fans who've never watched Sense8, like those of you who have not watched it, you have no idea what is about to happen, that she is on this show. Because I know Zack does action. So I was like, they're not going to have her there and not have her do anything. But on a technical level, I'm so curious about, we've seen her with this weapon. I don't know if it has a name, but it's sort of visually similar to a lightsaber. I've seen some online discussion of people being really excited about how they like the way that the light kind of drags from the weapon when it moves. That type of an effect, did that influence anything about the way you wanted to choreograph action, whether it's for her specifically or anybody who's handling that type of weapon? Because I don't know if, on a technical level, how that's going to influence, let's slow this down or speed it up, or have her stand looking cool for longer than she realistically needs to.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. That would definitely, that did play into the blocks. It played into the strikes. It played into what damage she takes, what damage the her opponents, let me be nebulous with this, her opponents take. So yes, of course, it plays a big part. I do want to make something clear, because I'm a full disclosure kind of guy.
Okay.
I prepped that movie for Zack, because originally I was going to go shoot something they were going to produce, one of those walls that hit. I wasn't going to be available to do the whole movie. And then that hit a wall. But so I was there for about 6 months, but I didn't The only time I went to set is I was meeting him about the other project. So I was not on set. So for the first time in Zach's, my history with him, I did not. I wasn't on set to execute everything. I handed it off to a guy that's worked for me over the years. But I did prep a lot of the movie, both movies. The big sequences at the end of the first and the second film, we did not get to those, but the the introduction to into her character is, I did a whole viz of that was really fun, and I actually did it on in the Unreal Engine, so it almost looked like a sort of a video game trailer, a cinematic almost kind of a vibe for the test of it, and that was a fun one to do. Yeah. So yeah, she's cool. She's good people.
Yeah. Because was that a conversation that you had with Zach of, how the old school lightsabers, the light drags, we should do that? Like, is that something that's explicitly being decided upon before?
That was really him trying to figure out how do we, in this world, and we talked about it a little bit, but he had he was very specific on what he wanted. And he went through some R&D with it, like everything, that's not it. This is it. As far as working on it with visual effects and props and us. So, yeah. He definitely had a distinct idea of what he wanted it to look like, for sure.
So when you talk about doing prep, does that extend into doing full-on fight choreography, or is it more of a skeletal structure of various action sequences?
Great question. Both, because the beginning stages were just Zach and I talk. Beginning stages, I read the script. I was finishing the Momoa show, and the guy that I originally put up for it didn't work out timing wise. So Zach called me in a panic, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, what are you doing? Can you come in and just at least help prep?" And I said, "Absolutely." So I read the script when I was finishing Momoa's thing, but I said, "Look, I'm directing up here. I gotta finish this, and then I can dive in." So right when I got back, he and I started meeting. That was October of 2021, I think. Yeah. So we start meeting, breaking down. I read the script, break down the action beats, and he and I start meeting on each section of the larger beats initially, character, all those things. And then I had a good friend of mine, John Koyama, come in, and he started budgeting because I needed to focus on the creative part of it. I helped with it a bit, but again, I was more of a creative coordinator in that one, because second unit is what I normally do. So we did, let me think, that was October, November, December, and then January started with the team. So then we have enough to, all right, let's get them in here. And we were going to start in December, but things just kept getting pushed. Never enough time or money. This was really one of those where we really felt it. But we started with a team, and COVID was still rampant then. So literally day one, when we're going through all these screenings at our stage, my main guy, John Koyama, he got COVID, so he's down for 2 weeks. I'm like, no, 2 other people. I'm like, okay, we already had a skeleton crew, and day one we had a skeleton crew just setting up, that sort of thing. But we got through it, and then slowly brought more people on, but started choreographing. And the usual process is choreograph. Okay, it's at a stage where I'm comfortable with it. Let's change this. Let's do these things. Go play with that. Okay, now I like where it is. Let's bring Zach in. Zach approves it, or says, "Oh, let's change a little." Then it goes to the stage of, "All right, are you ready for us to shoot it?" "Yes, go shoot it." So then we started shooting vises, and got as many as we could out until I think I was done in May, right after they started shooting. And it looks cool. So it's exciting for me in one sense, because I have this is going to be the most revealed movie, one of Zach's movies will ever be for me, because I was not there on set. Every other film I was on set, and obviously, and I've been in editorial, etc. I've seen some of the I've been in post on this, just watching stuff with him a little, but I wasn't there to capture everything. So it's really going to be like, wow, I have no idea how this movie's gonna, it's gonna be all exciting and new to me. So that's kind of the fun part about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
In some of the little promotional things that Zack has filmed for, I don't know, whether it's online stuff or events or whatnot, you can see a lot of real stuff, as in stuff that's been built for these sets, as opposed to just giant drapes of blue or green fabric. Does having the practical set actually there, did that change anything about your approach to working on this film? Because I know I was watching a lot of behind the scenes clips for Sucker Punch, and it was a lot of colorful fabric that
Well,
and
that
I
was
don't know how that impacts,
that's a great
if at all,
question.
for your job.
Yeah, well, so again, I wasn't on set for Rebel, so I can't speak to the, what they did specifically. I prepped some of the sets before we were shooting, things like that. So I saw some things coming together. Practical's awesome. The blend, it all depends on what you need. The beauty of the all green screen is nothing's in your way. Like if we need to change a wire and have 5 different lines coming, oh, there's nothing. We put up a post here. There's a stick of trust, and you can pull in all these different directions. Where the other time you're like, oh, we got to work on the set there. We can drill a hole through that, but we can't go through that beam. Oh, so it causes problems. But the texture that the actual sets give are great. So this movie was a blend of both. From if they shot what we had prepped, unless they changed the sets radically after I left. But even Sucker Punch. So for 2 of the sequences, there was a lot of green screen. It would have been the opening sequence with Baby Doll and the Samurai. We had very little practical set for that, and then the train sequence, which was the same. But World War I was all practical trenches. We had some green screen in the sky, but it was all practical, as the orc sequences were all practical sets. So it was a hybrid of both as well. But more the 2 middle sequences that I just discussed, those were 90% sets, the background green screen. So even in those sequences, it's good to have the texture. The texture really helps. It's stable. Obviously, there's a time and a place for both. Like Sucker Punch was what, 13, almost 14 years ago now when we shot it. So I think Digi has become a little cheaper, and people are more apt to look at the cost effectiveness of it. Is it cheaper to do this versus the construction? It's all ultimately, that still will drive it, depending on, it is a movie business. So they have to look at what the practicality is of the cost effectiveness of building practical construction, all these things, or post, and also what does the sequence call for, right? Because many times we have, if we're all green screen, we'll put a green screen post if they don't want to build a set, but it's still, there's a pillar here, so we still have to build this post and cover it with some padding and green screen on top of it, and the person has something to interact with, stairs, etc., all that sort of thing. So it's movie specific, scene specific.
My thing with VFX is that if you aren't going to spend the correct amount of money and time to do it well, then whatever money you think you're saving, I don't think you're actually saving any money, because then I'm either just not going to see it because I'll see it looks like garbage in the trailer. And also just certain companies, certain franchises have already established a long history of not treating their VFX workers well. So then I'm like, well, I'm not going to buy a ticket to that because it looks bad. And I know you're treating your workers bad. So what do I have to gain from this? But when James Cameron, well, I don't know if it was him specifically, but when the announcement was made that the 3rd Avatar film, it's like, no, it's not coming out in 2024. It's going to be 2025. I have to sit there and be all sad about it because I want to watch the movie. But I know that if he's pushing it back a year, it's like, no, he's tinkering on everything.
It'll be worth it.
Yeah, he's making sure that it looks the way that it needs to be. And I miss more things being done practically, because I feel like the association I have as a viewer is that the enthusiasm for using VFX is too often just a way of cutting corners, like where the final result looks bad and you treated your workers badly to get it. Whereas, like, I just watched Napoleon twice, and I only wanted to see it because it was a Ridley Scott film. I have no interest in Napoleon as a person. I have no reverence for that man. But there's these really cool action sequences where I'm watching it, and I know I'm looking at real people diving into water and flailing around and falling down because guns went off, pretend guns, but still in the story they're real. And it feels different. Like I feel what's actually happening because people are actually doing what they need to do to create the illusion.
Practical is awesome if you have the time and the money for it too, right? It's interesting. I mean, digital stuff is expensive. But I mean, look, obviously I haven't seen the movie yet, but the trailer is amazing, and Ridley's one of my favorite directors. And but there's some wide digi shots that look amazing in that sequence too. So the blend is, if you do it right,
you won't notice that there's
seamless. Yeah, or maybe to the trained eye you can notice, but you're like, damn, that's good. You know? We did that in the first 300, the second 300. I had somebody, Chinese director, who literally just wanted to, he hired me as a consultant to teach him how to do that because they don't have anything like that in China. This was years ago. One summer he came and he was like, I want to make this big movie and blah, blah, blah. Long story short. And he was showing me that sequence and he goes, I don't understand. It was all it was is we did layers of people. So he was juxtaposing it. I'm standing up for the Hong Kong cinema because that, along with Sergio Leone, Clint Eastwood, and Mel Gibson, all these other, John Ford, you name it, all these other amazing filmmakers over the years that have inspired me. But he's like, no, look, it's sloppy. And he's showing the background stuff. And I'm like, no, those guys are good. Those guys. And I'm showing him, he was showing the, just one little sequence. And I kind of just broke down how we did that. I said, if you look closely, there's 1,000 people here, but it's really not 1,000. It's more like 100, and 100. It's 100 people, and it's a group of 25 that we shot in different formations, and then spread them out, and then did it again. But the detail is there because it was the A team, and the choreography was sharp and visceral, and so we don't have a layer of these are the people we could only train for this long, and that's why the further back it is, it's sort of it gets watered down, and the quality and the movement, etc. And he was amazed at that. How do you do that? And I go, it's not that hard anymore, but it used to be a lot trickier. But you have to have time and money to do that. Is the key. Right? So, we'll see. It's interesting times, that's for sure.
I know one thing that Ridley does is he doesn't do a lot of takes. So there's that. And another thing he does is he sends his footage over to whomever is doing editing when they're still filming the movie. So he'll still be in the middle of production while the editor is already editing the movie. So they already know, like if the editor spots some sort of issue, they can let them know while they're still in production. So he's very efficient, and I love that.
That's fairly common anymore. That editing happens simultaneous because you need to now, especially on bigger productions. You gotta know. You gotta know now. You don't want to go back if you don't have to. So that's a big thing when you get sets that want to be. We need to move out because this scene's done. Can we strike this set? No. We haven't seen the dailies, and we got to make sure it fits in the cut. And it's never. Let's say it's not perfect, but that's a huge. That's a lifesaver. As far as
the other thing Ridley does is he has a lot of cameras. So whenever he's filming something, I think usually on average there's like 6 cameras.
Yeah, well, especially on massive action sequences, it's a lot of cameras are good. It's funny. The director I worked with on C, he came up under Ridley, so really sharp guy. And Anders is his name, and he's a Finnish director. Really sharp guy, really smart, really funny, and so we meshed very well.
I love doing deep dives on directors. As soon as I figure out, like, all I need is a couple of seeds of something to let me know, oh no, they're cooking, and then I start digging, because with Ridley he has a lot of these really funny sound bites where it sounds like he's talking trash, but it's not that he's talking trash. It's that he's 80 something years old and he doesn't care about filtering what he has
No,
to
of
say.
course.
So he just says whatever.
Got nothing to prove.
Like if people are mad at him about they're nitpicking some detail, and he'll just be like, shut up and watch the movie. Or he'll just say something and sound super cantankerous.
Yeah.
But he's actually really smart and really funny and really, you know, he's a total professional at what he does. And
100%.
yeah, so I have no, I get excited when there's a new Ridley Scott movie coming out because it's a new Ridley Scott movie, but also there's a new Ridley Scott press tour, and I get to see all these funny quotes
New sound
circulating.
bites.
Yeah, of him just saying that, like, you know, people are, I guess French historians are nitpicking
I heard this too.
accuracy, and he's saying something like, "Oh, were you there?
I read that.
Then shut
I read
up."
that too. Yeah. I think he was a little harsher. He told him to F off. He said, "Were you there?" He said, "F off, mate." Yeah, was the quote I read at least. So it was fine. It's like, yeah, it's a movie, for God's sakes. Relax. Yeah.
Well,
it's not a documentary. It's a movie. Yeah. No, it's funny because my wife and I just watched over, I think, 2 nights. Watched Prometheus and then Alien Covenant again. It was like, so good. So good. Yeah. He's a master. No,
I love stories of people who are, I never want to hear stories about people being so over the top that they're harming, like seriously harming others. But if they're just not all that filtered, those are my favorite people. Let me tell you something. When I found out that James Cameron almost beat the brakes off of Harvey Weinstein with his Titanic Oscar at the Academy Awards, I was like, if I ever meet this man, I'm going to kiss his feet.
Wait, let me hear that. Let me hear that story. I've never heard that.
Oh, well, because, you know, Harvey Weinstein, before the fall of Harvey Weinstein, you know, he talks a lot and he's, you know, trying to big himself up. And so what year is it when he's winning, you know, he's sweeping the Oscars for Titanic because Titanic was sweeping everything. And James Cameron is besties with Guillermo del Toro. And Harvey Weinstein was not very nice to Guillermo del Toro on, I believe it was Mimic. And so Harvey Weinstein, of course, wants to suck up to James Cameron and, you know, talk about, oh, well, you know, we're great for the artist, rah, rah, rah. You know, he's trying to network and try to, you know, strike up a deal or something like that. And I think, I don't remember the exact quote, but I know James Cameron said something like, so I just read him chapter and verse, which was such a weird but delightful way to describe that you just started kicking off at him and he was ready to, and the thing is, that's not the only story that James Cameron has of getting into a fist fight with someone in the industry. There was some story from his art book about beating up some director. It was over a painting. I don't want to bore you with me just talking about James Cameron when it's your interview, but
no,
it was
it's fine. No, yeah. I actually know James. I have an old student who has been training him for 15 years or so, something like that.
Yeah, no, and,
he's great. He's really, and I met him a few times over the years, and he won't take any shit.
I feel like he's somebody that I would trust, that if he's saying something, that's what he actually thinks.
It's not bullshit. It's not bullshit. Yeah, exactly.
Which is so refreshing for me because I just, 100%. You know, if even with doing interviews with people, it's like, I hope that I'm having an honest conversation with people, but there's always going to be that element of people trying to be on their best behavior, trying to put their best foot forward because they know that the conversation we're having is being recorded for the sake of being distributed to the internet. Whereas if you and I were just having a conversation, two people, you might say more to me than you would because we're recording right now, you know, which is perfectly fine and natural. But I just feel like with somebody like James Cameron, you know, if he's got an issue with something, he'll say it, but he's not going to, you know, be hostile for the sake of it. But if there's an issue, he's not going to lie about it. And I love that. I'm just like, yes, tell it like it is, you know? And I love that he almost gave up filmmaking to just go protest in the Amazon with indigenous people. I was like, I love that. Because he's got his priorities right. He knows the planet is more important than Hollywood fluff, you know? I love the Avatar movies. I'm gonna be completely feral by the time the third one comes out. I'm just be like, give it to me now.
Right. Yeah. No, he's an amazing filmmaker, man. He's another one on the top of that list. He and Ridley and Snyder's there, and there's a handful of them, and they're just amazing at what they do.
Keeping within the realm of things that are visible in the trailer, so I feel a little bit safer asking about them. There's a little detail in the full trailer that caught my eye with the protagonist, whom we can see behind us on the screen right now, where she's in a confrontation of sorts, and there's this moment of her kind of spinning the weapon, kind of, I don't know if it's over her hand or in her hand or something like that. And I thought that was so interesting because it's, on the one hand, it's one of those things where you go, oh, that looks really cool. But on the other hand, it also says something about this is a person with a background that knows how to handle the weapons. So if there was anything you wanted to just give your thoughts on that, if you're even able to, because again, you said that you had limited contact with being on the set itself.
Yeah. If it's the shot, is it an axe that's being spun?
I don't remember because I was just watching it quickly on I had a shift and then I came here.
And it's like, it's in just one hand, it's kind of spinning. Yeah. It's from a viz I shot. Yeah, I shot the viz. Again, I'm eager to see.
It's in the trailer, what I'm talking about, so.
Yeah. It's from the viz, one of the 2.5 that I shot when I was there. But it was my favorite one because I went, it was fun. I just got to go a little nuts, and Zach loved it. And I don't want to say too much about it, but yeah, that if it's the shot you're talking about, it's from that sequence. That is it's a powerful scene. So yeah, again, I'm eager to see because I wasn't on set for it. I just gave them the viz and they shot it. So
I think the impression I got was that it's sort of early in the character's journey of the main timeline of there's a situation and you're going to be pulled back into the world of you're going to have to fight and not just live your quiet life off wherever you're at right now, being a farmer or whatever she's doing before she gets pulled back into things. It's like, I think it's the early stages of, no, quiet time's over. It's go time now. So
I can neither confirm nor deny that. But
just following I
can't wait for you to see it on your 12-inch screen. No, I'm kidding. I want you to see
I don't know what it is, if it's like 36 or I don't know.
Oh, there you go. All right, it's not that small.
It's not a lot. It's all right. Yeah. I have again because I didn't buy it. It was gifted to me. So I don't have all the knowledge just imprinted on my brain. But thank you so much, Damon, for taking time with me.
Glad we finally had the opportunity to do this, and I hope you enjoy the movie, and I hope I enjoy the movie. I can't wait to see it. Like I said, I feel like a fan I'm a Snyder fan, and I wasn't there on set for this one, so I was like, oh man, this is it's I have more a little more. Well, just going into the unknown, right? So
I'm surprised he hasn't shown it to you already.
It's literally just finished. I've seen some scenes of it, but and it's so busy. He's so busy with it. So
yeah. Well, I wasn't sure if they were doing the early screenings already, and you would have gotten in
there. They
did
have a screening. There's a premiere in town that my wife and I are gonna go to. So I'll be seeing it in a few weeks. So
cool.
On a screen, sorry.
Well, again, you have it's an open invitation whenever you'd like to come back. If you're willing to come back, I would love to have you and
fantastic.
Pick apart your brain more about what the specifics of whatever I'm going to see, or we could just talk more about Sucker Punch because she deserves all the attention in the spotlight because she absolutely did what she needed to do.
Yeah, indeed. All right. Well, listen, thanks again, and have a great Christmas, good holidays, and a safe New Year's.
Thank you so much, Damon.
All right. Be well.